Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week of Y Senior Virtual Connect. I'm so happy that you're joining us today. If you're not joining us on Zoom, then maybe for a later recording to watch. But I'm so glad to see some faces. So glad to welcome back Sheila Baumgartner from the library. It's been a year since this stuff sort of started. We haven't been doing Zooms quite that long because it took us a little bit to pivot, but it was about this time last year where the Y was closing down and we were all scratching our heads going, what's going to happen next? So we've been pretty resilient, we've pivoted, we've done what we need to do, and it's been kind of frustrating at times. It's hopefully forced you to learn something new, maybe. Zoom, little technology efforts on all of our parts to figure some of this stuff out and stay connected, but just glad that we can be here together for another program. So thanks so much for showing up. Sheila Baumgartner is coming back with us. If you go back into the archives, she did a program for us, I don't know, it was couple months ago, and that was on the history of Charlotte. So if you want to look back to if you didn't see it, it's on the YouTube page that I share, and that's a great program too. So I just love, Sheila's got so much knowledge of cool things that you probably never knew, and here we are to talk about who is Sharon. So welcome, Sheila. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. First, I want to hear the construction noise that's, you can't hear that. Okay, good, because they've been cutting down our trees at the front and we've been crying, don't cut down our trees. You're not tearing the building down yet. But anyway, I decided to create this little program about 7 years ago because we get this question a lot, is who is Sharon? And also people just want to know, how did my road get its name? How did this school get its name? So I decided to just, we'll just figure it all out and let everybody see. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to make my little buttons go. Page up, page down. Huh.
Are you stuck?
I believe it is. Come on, boo-boos. There we go. This is the earliest map that we have of Charlotte, and you can't really tell, but this is Trade and this is Tryon Street. There was just 2 streets in Charlotte. Now, Trade Street derived its name from the trading path. That starts in Philadelphia and goes through all the states like Virginia and middle part of North Carolina through Charlotte and all the way down to Charleston. And what people would do is, around here we sold mostly, our corn goods and other vegetables, but fur, if you can imagine, furs were really big because people made hats and coats and whatnot out of fur. So they had people, and they would take that up to Philadelphia so they could actually get money, because coin money was very rare in the 18th century around here in Charlotte. Tryon Street, and we get this a lot, people will always call it Tyrone Street, and it's not named for Tyrone Powell, but and I always tell people you spell it like you try on clothes, and so that sort of helps. But it was named for the royal governor, William Tryon. If you've ever heard of Tryon's Palace or been to Tryon Palace in New Bern, I highly recommend it. Wonderful place to visit. And then they started with very easy streets: A Street, B Street, C Street, D Street, and then numbers. Later, this changed to Alexander Street, Brevard Street. College Street gets its name because down along 9th, there were several little college, they called themselves colleges, but the Presbyterian College for girls was down at 9th and about 12th and 11th Street, something like that. Davidson Street, of course, that was a prominent family name here in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg County. And we all know Alexanders are thick as thieves around here. Now, some streets got their name from institutions. How many people knew that Mint Street got its name from the U.S. branch, the U.S. branch of the Mint that opened in 1837 in Charlotte? Mint Street is uptown. That's where the Mint originally was. Then during the Depression, Mary Dwelly, excuse me, who opened the Mint Museum and created that wonderful institution, sometime in the 30s, what they did was they took the mint apart, brick by brick, numbered each brick, took that all the way down to Randolph Road, which was in the country back then, and rebuilt it. Ooh, did I miss something? Okay. Now, a lot of, as you know, there's lots of Presbyterian, whoops. Let her get in. As you know, there's lots of Presbyterian churches in the county, and most of them they're the sister of these early 18th century churches. And that's where Sugar Creek Road, Providence Road, Still Creek Road, Poplar Tent Road, they all get their names either from the church or, in case of Rocky River, the river that runs through nearby. Okay, little boo-boo. I don't know why it just won't do like it's supposed to. Ah, there we go. Now, Camp Green. How many of you knew that there was a World War I training camp right outside of Charlotte? It's in Charlotte now. And it was lots of farmland. It's out off of Freedom Road. And that's where Camp Green Road gets its name. And Remount Road gets its name from the stables that were there. And the horses were kept there, as well as cows, pigs, and bears. They had bears were the mascot of Camp Green. So they had a mama bear and a cub. Go figure. And because you have to remount, and for the cavalry, that's how it got its name. Now, Elizabeth Avenue derived from its name from Elizabeth College, and it was where Presbyterian Hospital, Novan Hospital, is now. In fact, those buildings used to be part of the college, not the more modern one, but the main building at the front. And it was a Lutheran college, women, and that was once the Torrance Farm. And just below there, where the park is along 7th Street, that was the city's water reservoir. And that today is the site of Novan Presbyterian. Now, here we come. When I first started here, had this question, who is Sharon? And I said, it's from the Bible. I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valleys. Well, this area is home to Sharon Presbyterian Church. You'll see lots of Sharon roads. And developers kind of like to tie in popular areas. So that's why you have Sharon Amity. Amity means friendship, and there was a Presbyterian church, Sharon Amity, it's a good ways from South Park, but it's down that way. And then you have West Sharon Road and all these other Sharon roads. And that's where it goes. In Hebrew, it's pronounced Sharon, and Sharon. And that's where the name Sharon comes from, believe it or not. And oops, where'd it go? How do I get back? We skipped one. And then you have Carmel Road. And again, it gets its name from Mount Carmel. Development. For 200 years, what we know as Central Avenue was known as Lawyers Road. Why? Because this was the route that lawyers took to the Anson County Courthouse in Wadesboro. The Piedmont, let me see, I remember the name of this company and I can't see it. Piedmont Park were developers in the early 1900s, and you'll find F.C. Abbott and George Stevens, and Stevens is connected with Myers Park, and they widened the road and changed its name to Central Avenue. Okay, come on, baby. Now this is the map of Dilworth. This was the first suburb in Charlotte. And many of the roads and streets through there were chosen by Edward Dilworth Latta. Latta Park was named for him. Dilworth was his mother's maiden name. So he was right proud of that. Whoops. Now, this is my fun one because, you know, you're driving down Wilkinson Boulevard and you wonder, who is Mr. Wilkinson? Well, it was named for William Cook Wilkinson, and he was a local banker, and he was instrumental in having the road that connects Charlotte to Gaston County. So hence they named the road after him. Beatty's Ford is named after the ford. John Beatty was a settler there, and he ran the ferry across that in a certain from his land to the other side. W.T. Harris was named for the grocer. Brookshire Freeway, most of us know, former mayor. Amy James, she was a wonderful school teacher, very well remembered. We talked about Mr. Dilworth. Now, I used to live off of Selwyn Avenue, and I had always heard of Lord Augustus Selwyn because you will see his name on most of the early 18th century deeds because he was the land agent for the crown here in Mecklenburg County. Brevard Street is named after the Reverend Ephraim Brevard. Caldwell, the Reverend David Caldwell. Both of these gentlemen played a significant role in the early years leading up to the Revolution. They were very pro, let's break away from England, and were fiery ministers. The Reverend Alexander Craighead the same. And Davidson Street is named for Revolutionary War hero, General William Lee Davidson. Okay, now I know this has happened to anyone who lives or has driven in Charlotte at any given time. You're on 3rd Street and you're just cruising down the road. Wait a minute, I'm on Providence and I haven't turned. Wait a minute, I'm on Selwyn Avenue and I haven't turned anyway. I can't explain this. Maybe it happens elsewhere, but we know it happens here in Charlotte. And these are just a few of the examples. My favorite one is Central. When I first moved here, like I told you, I lived off of Selwyn. And the only thing I really knew is that Central became kings and kings became queens. So I went to go visit some friends who lived off of Albemarle Road. And I came back at night. Well, like most women, I'm a landmark kind of person. Well, I couldn't see landmarks. And then I saw Central Avenue and I said, Central becomes kings, kings becomes queens. I can go home. I was so happy. And Beatty's Ford Road, 5th Street, Trade Street, that's why they call it 5 Points. And Hawthorne becomes Queens. And we all know we're a queen, but we'll talk about her too. Now, we have this great map. And it goes back to the 1700s. And the really cool thing about it is it lists these small communities that were once very integral in the lives of the people who lived in this area. They were farming communities. They might have a store and a post office and maybe a gin mill where they could go have their corn ground up and turned into cornmeal or flour for wheat. They actually did that, believe it or not. And these are just some of the little towns. So when you go and you see these, that's what they're named for, the little communities that once existed in Mecklenburg County. A lot of them get their names from the Bible or named after people. Caps Hill, there was the Caps Gold Mine. Newell Hickory Grove Road. Newell is a township. And Hickory Grove, there was a grove of hickory trees, and that's where the Hickory Grove Baptist Church was settled, and that's where it got its name. Are we having fun?
Yeah.
Waterways. You see lots of these, and a lot of them are named after creeks, or creeks, as they used to say back in the day. But these are all very familiar. A lot of the waterways that we know have been paved over, and there's just these large water mains that take the water out, and you just don't even know, and you'll just see this little thing. It says, Duck Cove, like where? but it's there, or it was there at one time. And sometimes the only way we know this is because of the street. Prominent families. These are some of the most prominent names at any given time. Vance Street is probably going to be changed, as we all know. Zebulon Vance was a Confederate officer, Confederate governor. And so that name will be changed. And that just happens with culture and change and social change. And a lot of people say that, but I know Zebulon Vance lived here and he practiced law here. He defended Tom Dula. Do you remember the old story, Tom Dula? Lost that case. But these are just some of the names that you'll see in and around the county: the Ray family, Spratt family, Springs family, Van Landingham, and the Wilkes family. Large landowners. These are big farms that are still, hold on, that are still in the family. I'm not sure if there's the Ray farm is still there, but the Sam Newell farm, the Johnston Oler Road, Lydell Street, that's uptown. That was I want to say, an iron manufacturing company. And I can't imagine, there were two of them in uptown, and I can't imagine that the air smelled good back then, because you had, besides manufacturing, you had stables up and down College Street. So, and we all know what horses produce. And cemetery roads are another popular. And these are just forgotten places. Alexandriana is another one of the examples of a small community. Jim Nash's store. Well, nobody remembers who Jim Nash was, but he probably had a store somewhere along this road. Nick's Tavern, I can jolly well tell you no one remembers Nick or his tavern, but he has been commemorized with a road. The North Lentz Harness Shop, harness making was an occupation back at the time. When you think of all the occupations that disappeared with the arrival of the automobile, it really makes you appreciate what we're going through now, when occupations change because of technology and they just disappear. When I think of all the different kinds of occupations that have just vanished in my short span on this earth, it's pretty amazing. So this is a great way to do some digging to find out who Jim Nash was, if you wanted to go online and play with the census. And we do have a Old McDonald had a farm road in Charlotte, so that was kind of fun. I had to put that one in there. Now, you'll be growing down and it'll say, oh, such and such road. Well, this means these were the roads, the earliest roads in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. And they usually got their name because this was the road to Camden. This is the coach road. This is where the stagecoach came through. Yes, we had stagecoaches back then. This is the road to Concord. This will take you to Dallas. The Old Mine Road, Monroe Road, Mount Holly. Nations Ford, of course, gets its name from the Native Americans. But as you can see, most of these are roads that actually take you to another part of the state. And that's how they got their name. And it's just been kept because a lot of these, now we just get there by, major interstates, but these were the main roads of how to travel from North Carolina to South Carolina, all the way to Western North Carolina. Now, if you ever in the University City, and I had a colleague who actually lived over there, and she lived on Lewis Carroll Court, and I just got a real big kick out of that. And I drove through her neighborhood, and all of the streets had been named after famous authors. So I think that's kind of a hoot. Native American tribes. This one really kind of threw me because I was like, but there weren't any Tuscaroras here, or Cheyenne, or Arapaho. But Alamance, that's my home county, that was the name of a tribe. A lot of these tribes are from North Carolina, except for the Delaware and the Arapaho and the Cheyenne and the Chickasaw. The others all have North Carolina or South Carolina connections. When North Carolina, before white people came to North Carolina, settlers in, in the age of exploration, there were over 300 tribes in North Carolina. After the 1400s and 1500s and 1600s, when exploration came through, that number dwindled drastically, mainly due to disease. And then there were wars between tribes. And so this is really the only legacy that we have. But I think this is just a developer liked the name. And then when they really ran out of names, they started naming them after cities in North Carolina. So I'll let you look through this list. And Leland is in Brunswick County. Oxford is down east, as is Plymouth. Salem, a lot of people don't know that Winston-Salem did not merge together until way after they were settled. There was the town of Winston, which was non-Moravian, and the town of Salem, which was. Bath, which is up here, that is the oldest city or town in North Carolina. Whoops.
Where is that?
That's it. Huh?
Where is that?
Bath is eastern North Carolina. I can't remember the county. It's a pretty little town. There's a lot to visit, but I suggest going in the spring or late fall. Rather warm. All of those areas, it's not near the Virginia border. And we also got states. We started using, I live on Ohio Avenue. I think that's kind of odd, but hey, pick a state that's your favorite state, and we probably have it. We don't have a North Carolina street. I'm pretty sure of that. Now, by 1950, this is the research that came out of this little program. It's because, we have a lot of streets with the same name, and they were so similar in spelling and pronunciation that local police and the firemen encountered problems trying to find the home that had the house on fire or the house that needed the police. So the Planning Commission in 1950 changed the names of 195 streets. And this came with the endorsement of Police Chief Frank Littlejohn and Fire Chief Donald Charles and the city manager. So down below, you can see at one time, there were 4 A streets, 2 B streets, 2 country club drives, 5 roads named Forest, 7 roads named Park, 2 Pine streets, and 2 Pinewood avenues. In one neighborhood alone, there were 4 intersections of Greenwood and Glenwood going in 4 different directions. So they passed a law, and since that time, developers cannot name a street already in use, not even if it is just phonetically similar. And we think that's a good idea, at least I do. And that's pretty much the end of my program. Let me come back up here and see, do we have any questions?
If a street is, if development comes at the end of an already existing street, can you name that street even though can you name that street something else? Do you know what I'm saying? I know we have.
Well, that's how Sardis and a lot of those roads, they went only so far and then they stopped, and then the development came through and then they decided to pick up and name it's something else. And it may be because of that law that they had to do that. But when they first started building houses, you would see like 3 or 4 houses on a certain street. And as the development progressed, the street lengthened and the numbers extended out. So I think that's an issue between the developer and the city, but I would say why would you change the street if it's on the same, if it's an extension of that street? Unless that because of the 1950 law, they're not letting them do that, but I can't imagine why they would not. But you never know. Local government. Anyone else?
Just a comment.
Huh?
No, just a comment. The 3rd Street and Providence Road, the reason that was done was there was a house there that belonged to my wife's uncle, who was chief of surgery at Presbyterian Hospital. And they decided to extend the street out. So they tore his house down and then they continued the road on through. So that's why 3rd Street became Providence Road.
Huh. Well, it also could be that too, but geographically speaking, that's probably the road that would take you to the community of Providence. That is a very old community in Mecklenburg County. The Arboretum was a newcomer.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me how, this is just part of Charlotte's history. You can learn a little bit about the names of people who were early settlers, and of course they get the roads named after them. Or there was a house that was real prominent. Ray Road, of course, is the Ray family. And that's just, that you just go down Ray Road, to the Ray family. It's a Southern thing, I'm sure. Anyone else have a question? Don't everybody speak at once. Don't be shy, don't bite. I gave it up years ago, I promise. It's not to have a, now we do a lot of different programs, and we do one on Queen Charlotte, and Jane and I were talking about that. Would you folks be interested in that, seeing some history about Queen Charlotte and some of the houses that were purchased for her and about how she grew up? I did not talk about Queen Charlotte. I should tell this little story because I would love this little story. A woman called and she wanted to know what year Queen Charlotte came to Charlotte and went down Queens Road West. And I had to explain to her that it wasn't until Queen Elizabeth's parents came to America. They were the first royal couple to come to the United States. But we have gotten our name from Queen Charlotte because at the time her husband was the big kahuna, and we wanted to be the town, the county seat. So we named our town Charlotte and the county after the location where she was from, the province where she was from in Germany, before it became Germany. So Jane and I will set that up, and I hope to be back with you soon. And if there's any other type of projects or subjects that you're interested in, just let Jane know, and I'll see if we have a program on it, which we might. We tried to cover all the basic subjects. We also do one on genealogy if you're interested in that.
Yeah, we did, Stephanie Lucas did the sort of the introductory ancestry.com and how to use that. That's on the archives as well if you want to go back and look at that. I'm sure Sheila could dive in even deeper to that. But yeah, the Queen Charlotte thing, there's a big Netflix show, whether you've seen it or not, that's very popular. That's probably Sheila would not like because it's probably less than wonderfully historically accurate. But it is very popular, and it's a fun series if you're not a historian. I think if you're a historian, you'll probably cringe. But if for entertainment purposes, it's fun. And it makes you think a little bit about this Queen Charlotte thing.
It's an alternative reality, and that's the one thing I do appreciate about it, the big what if. And the books are very popular, and the show is very popular. And when I was young, I would see something on television like that, and then I would go read books about it and get the facts. So I'm hoping that people will take this one step beyond and maybe research and say, oh, it wasn't quite so nice, and why was that, and how did people really live? And so I can't watch it, of course, because I'm just going, no, just
But it'll be nice. So when we set up the program, So if you guys have seen the show, then you'll have that background, but then Sheila maybe could enlighten us how, maybe how some of these things are correct. But it's always cool to kind of see why we were named Charlotte and just see that connection. So I think that'll be a fun program. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or share right now if you have any other thoughts about programming, because Sheila's really amazing at either having programming already done or being open to researching stuff. So she's really open to that for our group and others. So anybody have any last thoughts? Everybody's muted. Feel free to unmute yourself now. I just wanted everybody to be able to hear Sheila. Anybody have anything else they'd like to share? Feel free to unmute yourself. All right, well, I think everybody has said what they need to say and shared what they wanted to share. So I am grateful for you, Sheila, once again, for coming back to see us. Can't wait to see the next program that we're together for. And everybody, thank you so much. We'll look forward to visiting again soon. If you're not on my email list and you want to be, don't hesitate to reach out and I can add you. It's jane.hoagland@ymcacharlotte.org. I send out one email a week on Mondays, just kind of keeping in touch and look forward to seeing everybody again soon. And thanks so much, Sheila. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Bye, everybody.
Thank you
Have a
very
great
much.
weekend.
So interesting. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good Easter.
All right. Happy St. Patty's Day.
That
Thank you.
too. Hoist one for the Irish.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Hi. Thank you.